Madhava Kunja Bihari. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajaktacharya Asatarasata Sisi His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. Jai Om Vishnupad Paramahansa Parabhajaktacharya Asatarasata Sisi His Divine Grace Srila Bhakti Siddhanta Saraswati Maharaj Prabhupada Ki Jai. Anantakuti Vaishnavrinda Ki Jai. Namacharya Shri Haridas Thakur Ki Jai. Prem Sikaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Sivasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shai Mukund Radha Kund Giri Govardhan Ki Jai. Vrindavan Dham Ki Jai. Mayapur Dham Ki Jai. Gangamai Ki Jai. Jamunamai Ki Jai. Tulasi Devi Ki Jai. Bhakti Devi Ki Jai. Harinam Sankirtan Ki Jai. Srila Prabhupada Transcendental Book Distribution Ki Jai. Samaveda Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai. Nitai Gaur Premanande. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories Shri Shri Guru and Gauranga, glories of Srila Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimati Bhaktivedanta Swaminiti Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Pachani Nir Vishesa Sanyavari Paskircha Desatani Panchakopa Tirubhascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Hare Krishna. So thank you all for being here this morning, and thank you everyone for your invitation. I heard yesterday you heard from Dinabandhu Prabhu. Yes, you were all here for Dinabandhu Prabhu. So I asked, I said, did he give any bird sounds? And they said, yes. So you've heard all about Vrindavan, Krishna and Vrindavan from Dinabandhu Prabhu. He's our very special devotee here in Vrindavan at Krishna Balaram Mandir. So today, we're going to hear how we all came here to Vrindavan. We're going to hear about that person. I'll do my best. It's Srila Prabhupada. We're all here. All of us are here. And all of this development that's here is all due to that one person, Srila Prabhupada. And I was saying, I don't know any bird sounds, but I was with Prabhupada. He was in France. He stayed in France for a week. That was back in 1973, 51 years ago. And at that time, he installed the deities in Paris. And I would imagine most of you, hopefully all of you, have seen different photographs and videos of Srila Prabhupada in Paris, France for the installation. the name of the deities there? Radhaparashwari, yes. It was very sweet, actually. Prabhupada, we say, you have, when you have a concert, you have the maestro, the master. And Srila Prabhupada, he was always like that. You'll see him in videos, especially when they were installing deities. And Prabhupada would always be explaining what to do, how to do things. We were all very young, very new devotees back at that time. 18, 19 years old, 20 years old. I was Prabhupada's servant. 1972, I was 21 years old. Anyone here 21, 19, 20? So you're all that age. So by your age, I was traveling around the world with Srila Prabhupada. This was the amazing things that Srila Prabhupada did. He had in London, one of the temple presidents. He left us many years ago. Tribhuvanath, his name was. He was temple president in London. He was 17 years old. So there's no age restriction to what one can do, the service one can do as a devotee. There's no age restrictions. I'm traveling with spiritual master, pure devotee, just 20-year-old boy, living in the temple for 1 year. It wasn't anything we were doing. It was just the exceptional desire and purity of Srila Prabhupada. Once devotee, we would we would always say things, sometimes try to glorify Srila Prabhupada. And one devotee said to Prabhupada, Prabhupada, we're all puppets. We're all puppets in your hands. And Prabhupada looked and he laughed. He said, yes. He said, I want you to go like this, and you're going like this. When we were young, all of you, you're much younger. I'm now 73 years old. I grew up, we knew puppets. We would see puppet shows. I'm sure here, they're still going on in villages. Puppets are controlled just like this. The strings are there, 5, 6 strings, and depending on how you move, the puppet moves. So it was very subtle what Prabhupada did, because it didn't look any different. He said, I want you to go like this, and you're going like this. But he was showing making everything very difficult, because we're not like puppets doing exactly what Srila Prabhupada wanted. Despite all of that, he was able to spread Krishna consciousness all around the world with his very young neophyte disciples. You'll see deity installations in Melbourne, Australia, and Paris. We didn't have, now in Vrindavan, we have very sophisticated Abhishek equipment. We have everything silver. We have the big, what's it called? Our cow. We have our cow that the deities sit in, and the solid, all silver. My Vishaka Devi, my wife, she has deity care department. They polish everything. Yesterday, today, they polished all the deities silver, so it's ready for Ekadasi. For Abhishek, everything is done. We have all nice silver items, and you see they have the powders, and they have the cow tail, the tail hairs of the cow that are used to push the different things, the turmeric and things as they're doing the deities. You won't see any of these things when Prabhupada was here. They had kitchen pots filled with yogurt, filled with milk. They had ladles, kitchen ladles, so they would be doing over the deities. Prabhupada was pure devotee. Just his presence in there, he could call Krishna into the deity. None of these things, they were all, we say, extraneous. They were all extra. Prabhupada said just the chanting of Hare Krishna was sufficient. Even when they installed the deities in Vrindavan, Krishna Balaram Mandir, it'll be the 50th anniversary. This April 6th is the exact date of the Ram Nomi. So it'll be 50 years ago, Ram Nomi, 2025 will be the 50th anniversary. So we're hoping all of you come. We want everyone to come to this big, big celebration next year. So we've made so many things, we've learned so many things over the years, but we saw what Srila Prabhupada, one most important item. It's just devotion. It's the devotion, the purity that makes everything happen. It was Srila Prabhupada's purity. And in our ISKCON society, it's still the same. Our consciousness should always be whatever I do for the pleasure of Srila Prabhupada in ISKCON, and it's by his mercy, by his order, that I'm able to do anything. Otherwise, what can we do? What can any of us do? So these, and that was one of my favorite installations, because you see Srila Prabhupada, and he's standing in front of Srimati Radharani at the beginning of the installation, and with his finger, because Radharani had a little mark. She had a little, like a freckle. What do you call it? Like a little beauty mark. We say beauty mark. She had a little beauty mark, and Prabhupada was like, so that was very sweet. And he stayed there for a week. And one day we were in the sitting room with Prabhupada, and he said, I can also speak French. And he went, foo, 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 foo. If you listen to French, that's how everything sounds. Foo, 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 foo. So Prabhupada was making a little joke. And it was at that time, also flying from France, and he went to Italy, and he was on the airplane. You know, Prabhupada had his own style. He told me that once. He would, every afternoon, as Prabhupada asked us to do, Prabhupada would read his books. He would do bhajan. He would be in his room chanting his rounds. You could see him pulling down counter beads. So he kept, despite a whole worldwide society, thousands of disciples, 100 temples, traveling all around the world, wherever he went, he always had his regulated schedule. We study, we see how Bhaktivinoda Thakur in his writings, he put down his schedule, when he would write, when he would chant, when he did his government work, when he would take his very short naps during the day. So we knew that about him. But Prabhupada didn't speak about it, but I can tell you, he was very, very regulated. The thing that was very different, Bhaktivinoda Thakur, he was in one place, same time zone. Regulation very simple. Prabhupada was in a different place every few days, or every week, every 2 weeks, but he still maintained a very regulated schedule. We would come here to India, 20-hour flight, get into Delhi, 1 o'clock in the morning. The airport, Old Delhi airport, was a nasty place. As soon as you got off the plane, you could smell Delhi. We called it Smelly Delhi. The Smelly Delhi was, you get off the plane immediately. 1 o'clock in the morning after being in an airplane for 20 hours, 2, 3 different airports. 6 o'clock in the morning, morning walk. Prabhupada's servants, his secretary, his entourage, we wanted to sleep, but it's 6 o'clock in the morning. It's time for morning walk. 7 o'clock, time for class. Wherever he went, he maintained very strict schedule. Very important, you should know, in devotional service, to be regulated as much as possible, because then mind becomes peaceful. A peaceful mind, you can chant very nicely. So we were on this plane, and now we're in Italy. And Prabhupada, he never crowded against anyone. So even getting off of the plane, if someone was in front of him, he would leave some space around him. He would leave a little space around him. But he was standing behind a woman, young lady, and behind Prabhupada is his disciple. And Prabhupada sees the girl, and he turns to his disciple and he says, "She's very pretty." And the girl heard, and so she was very happy. She turned around and she saw Prabhupada. She said, "Thank you." He said, "It's not a compliment." He said, "It's just a fact." This is pure devotee. There was no intention to make her feel it. He said, he was saying it's just a fact. He would see Krishna's beauty. Huh? Some of you may have heard, I would be on the plane. Being on the airplane with Srila Prabhupada was one of my favorite things because he wasn't in the temple. In the temple, you always knew all the devotees were there offering their obeisances and everything was a certain way. But on an airplane, you didn't know what was going to happen. These were all karmis, Even Prabhupada would say karmis. So to see him outside of that area was a unique experience. He had also his regulation on the airplanes. When you go, all of you have flown, most likely. When you go in the plane, and then there's always those no smoking sign, fasten your seatbelt sign. So those signs, they also had significance when you traveled with Prabhupada. Because when the plane would take off, after 5-10 minutes, bing! See, I can make noises too. Bing! And fasten seatbelt sign would go off. What did that mean? Prasadam. Soon as that sign went off, meant you can put your table down, which means now you can take prasadam. Prabhupada was very fond of prasadam. Anyone here like prasadam? Who likes prasadam? Not so many ladies like prasadam. Prabhupada would tease his disciples sometimes. He would say, "You came just for the prasadam." Yes, Prabhupada, yes. I was an oddball. I didn't come for the prasadam. I had difficulty with prasadam. But anyway, as soon as that light went off, Prabhupada would take prasadam. And we always brought puri and dry sabji, potato, eggplant sabji, something like that. And Prabhupada enjoyed very, very much taking prasadam. And then when the plane's getting ready to land, again, they put the fasten your seatbelt sign. So what does that mean? That means Prabhupada gets out of his seat and he goes and uses the bathroom because now he's going to go into the airport, greet all the devotees. So he would go and use the bathroom. He would make sure he had nice tilak. He was devotee, Vaishnava. And he let everyone, wanted to see very nice Vaishnavas. So he would go in the bathroom and I would have to also get out of my seat and follow him. And the stewardess, they'd be going, sit down. And I just, so he would ignore them. Prabhupada would act, couldn't hear, didn't understand English, or he just didn't care. He was aloof. Prabhupada was transcendental. He would walk into the bathroom and I would stand outside the door. Then I'd hear, open the door. And I opened the door and Prabhupada had a big smile. He said, "When you're old, you can do anything you want." I finally reached that stage now. I do whatever. When you try to board a plane, they have your section 1, 2, 3, 4. So I don't care what my section is. I go right up to the front and they just look at me. He's old, leave him alone. You don't want to annoy an old person. You don't know what they'll do. So it's a very nice thing. Being old has advantages. One time he was on the airplane. We would always eat. In 1972, 73, if we were on Air India, we would even take vegetarian meals. We would have our prasadam and some vegetarian meals would be there. one time we had these meals in front of us. And me, I was with Prabhupada for a long time, 2.5 years. So he was very wonderful how he allowed me to become comfortable to be his servant. Because if you're not comfortable, how can you serve? You can't. If you're nervous, then your service is not going to be very effective. So I became his servant without any notice. New Vrindavan at Janmashtami. Prabhupada went to New Vrindavan 1972, Janmashtami, September. He stayed there for 10 days. So the day before he left, Kirtanananda Maharaj came into the kitchen where I'm cooking morning sweets, Mangalartik sweets for Radha Vrindavan Chandra for the next morning. And he said, "Do you want to be Prabhupada's servant?" I said, "Yes." So I found out 8 hours before I was to meet him as his servant. The next morning, 5 o'clock in the morning, I went in. Kirtanananda brought me into Prabhupada's little farmhouse. Prabhupada sitting behind his desk, just on a cushion on the floor. And Prabhupada introduced me. He said, "This is Sruta Kirti. He's going to be your servant." Prabhupada went, Then Kirtananda said, "He's a very good cook, but he doesn't know how to massage." Prabhupada said, "Anyone can massage." That was not, he was just saying that to make me feel comfortable, because not anyone can massage. Prabhupada was very, very particular. You could not have, if your hands sweat, you couldn't touch Prabhupada. If you were too soft, he would say you massage like a girl. No offenses to girls, to ladies. He likes very strong massage. He told me once, "You can massage my back as hard as you like." Imagine, I'm behind him. Every day I'm massaging his back. His back was the main part of the massage. First his head, you started at the top. You start at the head, sandalwood oil. Why? Cooling. Cooling. Sandalwood oil is very cooling. Prabhupada said you have to keep a cool head. You know, he would, one interview back in those times, the 70s, it was very big women's liberation in America. Women's were liberated. They didn't need men for anything. They could do anything a man can do. And so they had this interview as Prabhupada arrives at the airport, and it was a woman doing the interview. The person on the camera was a woman. The person handling the mic, a woman. They wanted to show this person, this Swami from India, trying to make these women servants. That women can do whatever men can do. So this woman, she was a typical woman in the 70s. She had little mini skirt, called mini skirt, way above the knees. So her legs were very visible. And she asked Prabhupada the kind of questions, he didn't care for these questions, silly questions, he thought. And she said, "Swamiji, why do you shave your head?" And he looked at her, he said, "Why do you shave your legs?" He said, "Better to keep cool head and warm legs," he said to her. So this was Prabhupada's way. On one airplane coming from Japan to Hawaii, a nice airplane. And again, many times you have men stewards and you have stewardesses, women. And of course, in the 70s, everyone was young. Flying was just beginning. Everyone was young. So the stewardesses were young, pretty ladies. And so she's walking down the aisle, coming towards where Prabhupada's sitting. He's always at the window seat. Next to him was his Sanskrit editor. His name was Nitai at the time. And as the woman's walking down, Prabhupada had seen in front of him, there was a Time magazine. Newsweek, Time was biggest magazines in the world in those days in the West. And on the cover was a bunch of ladies and all with their hands in the air. They were having a demonstration, women's liberation. And they had a fire. And in the fire, they were burning some of their clothes, their top part. They were saying they wanted to be liberated. So Prabhupada looked at the magazine and just put it back in. And then he sees this woman walking down the aisle, and he pokes his Sanskrit editor. He said, tell her, if she wants to be liberated, shave your head. And the woman's walking down, and he could see he wasn't going to say anything. And Prabhupada again, he said, go ahead, make a joke. He said, tell her, shave your head, then you'll be liberated. But he wouldn't do it. So Prabhupada had a very nice sense of humor. They had big screens in the airplanes. You didn't have one little screen in front of your seat. You had, in every cabin, there was like a big movie screen. And they would show the movies, and then you could get the little headsets and watch the movie. Of course, we never got headsets, but you would see the movie going on. That was, before I was with him, it was Prajumna was next to him, and it was a Charlie Chaplin film. Charlie Chaplin, he was a comedian. His movies, they were called silent movies. It was before even talking. So everything you did, you had to do with your bodily movements and your facial expressions in your hand. Everything was what you displayed just with your... And Prabhupada was watching. And Charlie Chaplin was very funny. The things he could do, very, very funny. Things with his hat and just... And Prabhupada watching, and he's laughing, watching this Charlie Chaplin fellow. And even his disciple, you know. When you first come to Krishna consciousness, generally a fanatic person. They're the most fanatics, the new devotees. They're the best devotees. Everything, just Krishna, like this. And the devotee said to Prabhupada, you're laughing. This movie, this is not Krishna. And Prabhupada said, Krishna has given him this ability, this intelligence. So he saw Krishna is very funny. He can make anything happen. He can give anyone the ability to do. So Prabhupada was enjoying, just watching. I was sitting next to him one day on the airplane, and there was a movie. We call them Westerns. Western means in America back in the 1800s when everybody supposedly had guns, you know, shooting, and Indians, when you had the Indians and soldiers. So there was this Western movie in the Wild West, and they all have their guns and their hats, big hats and everything. And Prabhupada's looking, and I'm sitting next to him, and there was this one man, he had a black suit on, and he had a book like this. And he's holding his book like this, and Prabhupada looked at me, he said, what is that book? We're not even hearing anything. And I didn't know, but I tried. I said, I think it's a Bible, Srila Prabhupada. I think he's a priest caste. It's the Bible. He said, okay. That was it. Another time on the airplane, they said prasadam was very, very important. Very important part of flying was to have prasadam. And if you fly, you know that. You must bring prasadam with you. So again, we're sitting there. And I remember this. I even remember the seats. It was on the left side of the plane, halfway back in the plane. Prabhupada's at the window seat. I'm next to him. And we had chapatis, sabji, everything was there. And I put it on Prabhupada's table, and I'm sitting next to him. And Prabhupada starts eating. And he starts laughing and laughing. He's got chapatis. And he said to me, I could never eat chapatis. He said, growing up, he said, I never ate chapatis. I had to have puris, only puris. And he's laughing. And Prabhupada, when he spoke, especially when he spoke about his childhood, he could make the sound of every person. He would every character, he would speak like they would speak. So he made it very real, very alive. And he's saying, when I was young, he said, even as a grahasta, he said, I was grahasta. So now he's in his 20s. He said, I never ate chapatis. He considered them not very special. He said, but sometimes it was very difficult. He said, we would get invited. People would invite us to our house for lunch, and they would offer me chapatis. He said, I couldn't take it. He said, but how to explain? He said, because you can't offend them. If you don't take, you offend them. He said, but I couldn't take, so I would have to make some excuse. He would refuse chapatis. He says, and now, he says, I'm eating. He said, I had one servant when I was grahasta. He's saying all this as we're on the airplane, and he's eating. He said, my servant, he would say, let me make you chapatis. I'll make you such nice chapatis. He said, you'll very, very good. And Prabhupada, he said he refused many, many times. Finally, he said, let me make, okay, Prabhupada said. He said, and I had the chapati. It was so nice. I made every day chapatis for Prabhupada. He would eat at lunch 4 chapatis, 5 chapatis, 6 chapatis. I would run back and forth. You bring him his plate, put it down on the table, 1 chapati, puffed up chapati. Must be puffed up. Only thing allowed to be puffed up in Krishna consciousness are chapatis. You can't be puffed up. You can't become Krishna conscious if you're puffed up. But chapatis must be puffed up. And I put a little ghee on the top, just as he showed me. And I'd bring his plate, put it down, offer obeisances, and I'd run back to wherever I was cooking. Sometimes it might be a building next door. Sometimes it was right next to his room, a little servant's quarters. I would run and I would make the next chapati, puff up. And I was blessed when I was with Prabhupada. I was given special mercy. All my chapatis puffed up. They all puffed up. So puff up, and I put a little ghee, and I put it on a little silver plate, and I'd run in and slide it on the Prabhupada's plate. And offer obeisances, and you'd hear Prabhupada. He loved to hear that sound. Was a very blissful sound. It's like hearing Krishna's flute. You become very happy, and he'd break off a piece. His rice would be in a little tiffin, 1-piece tiffin that I made. And that was at the end of the meal. He didn't rice, he would Bengali style. So he would start with the dal, the sabji, chapatis, mixing everything. And then after he was done, 1 chapati, 2 chapati, back and forth with chapatis, offer obeisances. Just during lunch, 20 minutes, you may offer obeisances 10 times. Just during lunch. Every time you went into the room, you offer obeisances. And if you were there more than 1 minute, you had to offer obeisances or you were leaving the room. He never said, you've offered obeisances enough today, like 16 rounds. You've offered your obeisances. No, he never said that. I could offer obeisances 50 times in a day. Imagine, my good fortune to be able to go down on the ground for Srila Prabhupada so many times. But just quickly offer obeisances and then go back. He had one secretary. He was my very close friend. We became very close. His name was Paramahamsa Swami. You'll see pictures of him, especially if you get my book. He was a very sweet devotee. He became Prabhupada's servant or secretary. He was like all of us. He was in ecstasy. So he goes in the Prabhupada would ring his bell. When he rings his bell, servant went in. So I go in, he said, call Paramahamsa. So I called Paramahamsa. This is his first time going into Prabhupada's room as his secretary. So Paramahamsa goes in the room, and he was tall, big, and does a dandavat. And then he would chant other slokas, Omagyanatumanandasha. And then he'd sit up and Prabhupada asked him something. So then the next time, called Paramahamsa, he came in and down on the ground, he'd do his dandavat, then chanting prayers. So then the next, third time comes, called Paramahamsa, he comes in, he lays down on the ground, starts chanting Namo Vishnupadaya. Prabhupada says, get up. He said, how are we going to get anything done? You lying on the floor. So then, that was last time he did dandavats before Prabhupada. Don't we just offer obeisances and said, yes, Prabhupada. So I said the whole idea was Prabhupada made us comfortable. To be with the pure devotee, we were always awe and reverence, right? We all know that term. We were all in awe and so much reverence. My first time we left New Vrindavan that morning, it was a 2-hour drive to Pittsburgh. Prabhupada stayed in the temple there, had his room. They had a sitting room for him in his bedroom. So Prabhupada's in his sitting room. I'm in the bedroom, and I'm looking in his suitcase because I have to learn. There's no classes were there to become Prabhupada's servant. No retreats. Now we have retreat centers. So many retreats. Japa retreat, GBC retreat, disciple retreats. How to become disciple, how to become guru, how to become... We have retreats for everything. We had no retreats. We had Sankirtan. That's all we had. The morning program and Sankirtan, book distribution. And that's how you learned everything, just by doing those things, just by attending class. I remember in New Vrindavan, when I was first there, and New Vrindavan was a farm, very simple, very austere. I went into the bathroom to use the bathroom. I didn't know how to clean myself afterwards, and nobody told me what to do. There was no paper, no toilet paper there. We had to learn everything. My first night sleeping, devotee next to me. He also was a bhakta. He was there 2 months, so he was senior devotee. He's there 2 months. So I had when I left home, I just took a little sleeping bag. That was it. I left home with a sleeping bag. And I'm lying on the floor. And I was lying on my stomach to go to sleep. And the devotee says, he said, you're sleeping with Maya. I said, what? He said, turn over, you're sleeping with Maya. I said, I didn't know I was sleeping with Maya because I was lying on my stomach. He said, get on your back. Yes. So that first thing I learned was that. Then we had spiritual sky incense there, and it was married couple, grahasta couple, very nice couple. And I was 19 years old. They were like 26. It was ancient. I was only 19. And I worked with the husband. The wife was also there. One day she was talking to me. Brahmachari came up to me. He said, do you want to get married? I said, what? He said, why are you talking to a woman? I said, I don't know. She was telling me something, Krishna conscious. No, don't talk to a woman. You're going to get married. Yes, Prabhu. This is how we learned things back then. So now I'm looking in Prabhupada's suitcase, and there's not much in there. A few dhotis, kurtas, sash. His cooker looked like a bomb, this thing. golden colored thing sitting in his suitcase. That was the cooker. I didn't know what a cooker was. I'd find out very soon. So while I'm in there, chatter, I hear the bell ring. That's the only thing I was told. When Prabhupada rings the bell, you go in the room. I mean, his servant, secretary doesn't go in, Sanskrit editor doesn't go in. You go in, you're the servant. I said, okay. He said, when Prabhupada's on the airplane, you sit next to him. I said, okay. When Prabhupada's in the car, you sit next to him. I said, okay. He said, do you know how to record? You know, back then we had big tape recorders, like this big 10 kg tape recorder you'd have over your shoulder. Do you know how to record? I said, of course I know how to record. Just like every 10-year-old knows how to use cell phone. I know how to record back then. He said, okay, when Prabhupada speaks, you record. I said, okay. So for the first time, I heard the bell ring. And I got up. I was literally just by the door. Next room was just next door, 2 meters, 3 meters away. So I got up, I ran into the room, and I offered obeisances. And Prabhupada's sitting right in front of me in his asana on the floor. And I offered, and I looked at him, and he just looked at me. I said, I didn't know what to do. It was my first time. I said, yes, Prabhupada. I said, what can I do? He said, nothing. He said, I just wanted to see how fast you were. My only service was to answer the bell. He wanted to make sure he rang the bell. I was going to come in the room. And I looked, and I said, anything else? He said, no. He just wanted to see I answered the bell. And then I said, should I go now? He said, okay. So then I went back. But just that very first time he rang the bell, all my anxiety took away. He smiled. I could see Prabhupada, his sense of humor is practical, but also he had a very nice sense of humor. So that was my very first meeting with Prabhupada as his servant. And then I was in a lot of anxiety about massage, because I had never given anyone, I didn't know anything about massage, certainly would never touch another boy. I was like out of the question. And now I had to massage my spiritual master. I didn't even know how to do it. So the first day, Sudama Maharaj was there, and he was giving Prabhupada massage. I got to watch. Just very simple, just rubbing his head with sandalwood oil. And I'm watching. Then he goes behind him and starts rubbing his back. And so then he was finished, and I thought, well, he's here. He'll give massage each day. And then Sudama offered his obeisances and said, Prabhupada, I'll take your leave now. I'm going back to Japan. And my heart sank. I thought, oh no, I've got a massage Prabhupada tomorrow. Tomorrow happened in Dallas. Prabhupada stayed in Pittsburgh one day. Then he went to Dallas, Texas. That temple's still there. Radhakala Chanji. Big, very big, tall, blackish Krishna, Kala Chanji. And Prabhupada had a whole flat there. Bedroom, living room area, sitting room, kitchen, full kitchen was there. Walk was there, ghee in the walk, everything very, very nice. And in that kitchen, Prabhupada showed me how to use his cooker and how to give him massage for 3 days. 3 days we spent there. And during those 3 days, every day Prabhupada showed me how to use that cooker. I said that cooker became my best friend traveling around the world with Prabhupada. It made it possible to cook rice, dal, 3 different sabji preparations, all while you were giving Prabhupada massage. The cooker was on the stove in the other room. And it required a lot of finesse. Not everyone could use the cooker. It required, required mercy from Radharani. But he showed me, because Prabhupada's massage could take an hour and a half. Imagine you're cooking vegetables for an hour and a half. There'll be nothing left. Dal, everything mush. But you had a setting. You had to know how to set it very low so that when you came back after massage, everything was ready to be chanced. The rice was nicely steamed and ready. The dal was done. Everything worked out. So we would sit on the floor, on the kitchen floor, and the cooker would be on the table, on the stove right in the kitchen. And I started Prabhupada's head, then his back, then I moved to the side, his chest, massage his chest, everything I saw. And I'm just putting on mustard oil, rubbing it on, and pulling at his arms, pulling his fingers, trying to make his fingers crack, making his toes crack when you massaged his toes. This was servant. This was servant's business. One time I'm massaging his legs. He grabbed my leg and started massaging my leg. I got massaged by Srila Prabhupada for a few seconds. Like this, he said. Once he said, like chapati dough. Like you're doing chapati dough. You're massaging. And the first day with the cooker, Prabhupada we're both at the counter. He was on one side, I was on the other side, and he was cutting up the vegetables to put in the center. And he gave me this container to wash the rice. He said the rice gets steamed on the top level of the cooker. So he gave me the rice. He said, wash the rice. So I went over to the sink, which was at the left side. He's on the right, and he's cutting vegetables. But Prabhupada sees everything all of the time. You may think he's not noticing what you're doing. He's always seeing what you're doing. That's one thing. He's still always seeing what you're doing. Prabhupada sees everything. So I put water, turned the tap, got water, swished it around, poured the water off. So I learned from Kirtanananda, you wash the rice 3 times. 3 times you put the water, swish, like that. 3 different. So I put water in again, and I swished it, and I'm ready. And he said, what are you doing? I said, well, Prabhupada, I'm washing the rice 3 times. He said, once is enough. That was my first instruction from Prabhupada that said, whatever you've learned doesn't matter. You just hear from me. That was his instruction. That's what I understood from that. You may hear so many things. You're supposed to do this. You're supposed to do this. You have to chant Panchatattva mantra before you chant. All these things you hear. Prabhupada said this. He didn't say any of these things. Prabhupada said only 5 chickpeas. We were raised. Only 5 chickpeas. Prabhupada said, who said that? I never said that. Only 2 chapatis. He said, who said these things? He said, they'll say Prabhupada said this, Prabhupada said. He said, unless you hear me say it, I didn't say it. All these Prabhupada saids. 2 chapatis. 5 chickpeas. Otherwise, trouble. Too much protein for all you brahmacharis. Prabhupada said, whatever you can eat, whatever you can digest, that's what you eat. He said, when you're young, you can't eat too much. And when you're old, you can't eat too little. I'm learning that now. I used to always, I haven't eaten. What's going to happen? Now I'm like, I cannot eat. It doesn't even matter anymore. I'll eat 1 paratha finished. Like today, what do you want for? We said, make a little simple khichdi. Well, what else you want? Khichdi. What else do I need? The khichdi, it's a meal. You want sabji, this. No, don't need it anymore. When I was young, we did. We would eat. Brahmacharis, Sunday feast. We would eat like this. Look like Govardhan Hill, the plates. The devotees, they couldn't wait for the Sunday feast. Big piles of halava. And you would eat and eat. And when you got too full, you would get up. And then go sit back down and eat more. Preaching at the Sunday feast, and you preached at a prasadam. We eat prasadam. People would be coming to the Sunday feast. Who's going to preach to them? I'm busy. I waited all week for this halava, pineapple chutney. What was it? Strawberry, Malpura. Malpura was one of our very famous. We had the best Sunday feast back in those days. There was always halava, samosas, cauliflower pakoras, tomato chutney, Malpura, sweet rice, every feast. And we would eat until we exploded on prasadam. This is how Prabhupada knew when he went to America, he didn't give rules and regulations to the people. He gave them Hare Krishna mantra and prasadam to purify them. Lots of prasadam. And I saw Prabhupada breakfast, always fruits, whatever fruits were available. In those days, you didn't have a lot of worldwide fruits everywhere you went. Whatever was in that city, that's what you had. Like here, now we see apple season. All the tables, you'll see apples and bananas and papayas. Vegetables, Loki squash. Yeah, not my favorite, obviously. Loki squash, not my favorite. Yes. So that's what he would have for breakfast. Nice fruits, and always would have milk or yogurt, depending on the season. And a sweet, milk sweet, Prabhupada would have. Lunchtime, rice, chapatis, dals, sabjis, deep fried Karela. He would start with Karela, because that aids digestion and gives you appetite. So many things Prabhupada would say. Prasadam must be on time, not just for the deities. He said, because if prasadam is 1 o'clock, already your mind, your stomach's all ready to eat. Digestive juices are already coming. He said, and if you don't bring it then, he said, it'll cause indigestion. So to be Prabhupada's servant, everything regulated. Regulation, very important. And then in the evening, he would ring the bell around 8 o'clock. He always had hot milk at night. Hot milk meant very, very boil. It had to boil, had the foam with a little sugar. He told me hot milk with sugar. He never said I put in too much sugar, I didn't put in enough sugar. He never said anything. Others, I'm saying this because others would tell me, this milk was too sweet, this was too this. He never corrected. I don't know whether he just figured it didn't matter or I did it right all the time. He was always okay. But if the milk wasn't hot enough, sometimes people would bring milk, warm, hot. The one time devotee walked in the room with the milk, and Prabhupada said, bring it back, it's not hot. He said, yes, Prabhupada, it's hot. He said, it's not hot, you're holding the cup. So if you could hold the cup, Prabhupada, he could see everything. If you're holding the cup, it's not hot enough, because the cup should be so hot that you have to have it on the plate. Because he didn't drink milk, you ate it. Milk, he said, it's not a beverage, it's food. So it has to be, he started out with the spoon. He said, because if it's not hot enough, he said, then it just turns to urine. Otherwise, it's food. It's like eating chapati. So all these, you would learn all these little intricate details, how to go day by day. He said to me, first-class servant knows what to do without being asked. So once he told you something, he expected you would do that all the time. Like if he said milk has to be like this, that's how you do it. He doesn't have to tell you again. Once you know, you should be able to do it. Then you know, then you're a first-class servant. And that doesn't just mean personal servant. That's all of us. Our business is to become first-class servants of our spiritual master. Everything personal. Everything is personal. So in the evening, sometimes he'd call me in and say, Puri and sabji, potato eggplant. He liked potato eggplant. One time he told me, cabbage and potatoes. He said, I'll show you how I want it. This was at nighttime, 9 o'clock at night. So we went in, and my room was also the kitchen. It was literally just a little bedroom, but there was a refrigerator in it. I had a shelf there, bucket of water. I didn't have taps. I had a bucket of water on the floor, and that's where I cooked for Prabhupada. So he came in, and he showed me how with the cabbage, he was shredding, with the knife, nice and thin cabbage. Always ghee. All Prabhupada's cooking was in ghee, not oils. Prabhupada said, oil is for outside of the body. Ghee is for the inside of the body. The best food possible, ghee, pure cow ghee. The most wonderful. Not even just the food, like medicine. Little ghee every day, little ghee. So then we had the frying pan, the wok, put some ghee in, made it chaunts. Chaunts were always simple. So he showed me how to use his cooker. Cumin was always there, little coriander seed. Hing and turmeric. Little bit of chili, little bit. Not too hot you can't eat chili, like everywhere. Little bit, or even not at all. And very hot, he had the flame, so he had to scrape. He had to scrape it off the bottom. So it actually blackened it. So this is how he showed me. Another time, he rang the bell. I went in. He said, do you know how to make parathas? I said, no, Prabhupada. Never made them. He said, I show you. He said, very easy. He told me, he said, make a chapati dough. And when it's ready, let me know. So I made a chapati dough. I went and called him. He said, okay. He said, roll it out just like chapati, but instead of flour, ghee. So you put ghee down on the surface, ghee on the top, and you roll it out. Then you put ghee on the top, and you fold it in half. You roll it out again. So now you have half circle. Then you put more ghee, and you roll it out again. You fold it over, so it becomes the triangle shape, like a triangle. But ghee. He said, now you put ghee on the skillet, you put the paratha on there, and after just 30 seconds, you put ghee on the top, you turn it over. And then you put ghee on the top of that again. And you just keep doing that until it becomes nicely golden brown with lots of ghee and very flaky. It was very wonderful. Filled with ghee. So that was paratha. That was the paratha. One day, New Dwarka was the world headquarters. Back in 72, 73, it was the main temple. And we had the head pujari, his name was Shalavati. She was a woman, single woman, widow. She never, when she came, she was already, had been married and husband was gone. She had 2 boys, about 10 years old. So she was older. She was the head pujari. Prabhupada personally trained her. And then devotees would come from all over the USA to learn from her how to be pujari. So we know Prabhupada, of course, showed us so many nice sweets. So one day I see we're getting Deity Maha, from the Raj Bhog offering. And it's this sweet, look a little bit like a luglu, but not. It had some raisins in it, and it had this puffed rice, American-style puffed rice that came out of a cereal box. It's called Quaker Oats puffed rice. It had that, and might have some peanut butter in it, and then some sweetener. So I saw this funny sweet. They were offering to the deity Mangala sweets. So I have it, and I think, well, this looks a little funny. So at lunchtime, I put 2 of those sweets on Prabhupada's plate and 2 sandesh, because always had sandesh on his plate. I put 2 of them and 2 sandesh. So Prabhupada ate his lunch. I go back and forth with chapatis. He eating. Then he gets to the sweets. Lunch is finished. So then he finishes, and then he's sitting in his chair afterwards, and he calls me in. He said, "What are those sweets?" And I knew what he meant, because I deliberately put him on his plate to see what his reaction would be. He said, "What are those sweets?" I said, "Well, Prabhupada, they're offering them to the deities in the morning." He said, "Who's made this concoction?" He said, "I've given you so many nice sweets." He said, "Bengali sweets." He said, "We have rasgullas and sandesh and gulab jamun, burfi, so many sweets." He said, "Why are they concocting these things?" He said, "Just do what I showed you. Don't change anything." He said, "I've shown you all these nice sweets to offer." So I went, told her, "No more. Just make what Prabhupada told you. Don't invent." Prabhupada called it Western disease we had, changing. Now it's worldwide disease. Same disease as here in India now. It wasn't just us Westerners. You're also changing everything. Slowly, very slowly. My god sister Malati, you all heard of Malati? She was 1967. She's been GBC for, 30 years or so. She said, "I hope if I come back next life that I recognize ISKCON." We grew up in a very special ISKCON. All we did was work, take prasadam and sleep. Yeah. Even during Bhagavatam class, we would sleep. We slept so little, we would sleep in Bhagavatam class. So that was then. So our business is to become first-class servants of Srila Prabhupada, chant our rounds, read his books every day. Not just class, but then reading his books. Very, very important. As Prabhupada read his books every day, every afternoon, I would see him reading his books. And I was always amazed to see he wrote these books. But he said, "I didn't write." He said, "Krishna has written." And he relished reading these books. So this is our business. It's almost 9 o'clock, I see. We can have time for some questions. A few minutes for, we'll start with Vishaka Saki Devi, yes. What did I forget? Now.
Can you please tell about Srila Prabhupada describing Govardhan, his last wishes to come to Govardhan, and about Govardhan?
Yes. One day, when we were here in Vrindavan, Prabhupada came to Govardhan. It was back in 1974. Prabhupada came to Govardhan. I remember very, very little other than him coming, offering his obeisances. We stayed not a long time, very short time. Then he went back. And of course, we know in 1977, just in the final month, Prabhupada said he wanted to go around Govardhan. He wanted to do parikram around Govardhan at that time. And of course, the advice from the Kaviraj was he'll never live through it. Then the roads were very, very poor. From Vrindavan to Govardhan, practically dirt roads, practically in those days. So it was very, very bad. So everyone was saying not to do. And Prabhupada said, Prabhupada is suicide. It's suicide. If you go, you literally kill yourself. And what the Prabhupada said, well, it will be death by Ram or death by Ravana. So he said, better death by Ram, which meant preaching, which meant going on, doing parikram. Of course, he didn't do it that time, and just a few days later, Prabhupada left, and then, of course, they took him around Govardhan parikrama. But Prabhupada's business always was preaching. But he didn't, whenever there was possibility of his leaving, he came to Vrindavan. Prabhupada definitely wanted to leave in Vrindavan. So you're coming here is a very, very special place to be here in Govardhan. You take advantage, like I told Prabhu's coming. Our business always, when we come to the Dham, most important thing is hearing. Not just seeing this place, seeing very nice, but devotee progresses by hearing, not by the eyes. We progress by the ears. So this is what's going on now. Now you can do parikram. We lived in Govardhan. 12 years ago, I lived right across Vasundhara. It was very nice. They were just building. It was a very beautiful place. It's still nice. But we lived there for 2 years. And even while living there, we didn't regularly do parikram. But one day, my godbrothers, Govinda Swami, said they were going to do Govardhan parikram, Dandavat parikram. This was 11 years ago. So we were all like 62 years old. They said they were going to do Dandavat parikram. And I said, okay. I lived there, I'll do it. I had no idea what it was like. Took us 10 days. The first day, I collapsed. The first day we went from the beginning of Radhakund to Kusum Sarovar. That was like 2.5 kilometers, just like that. So just 10 minutes before reaching Kusum Sarovar, I decided I was going to quit. There was no way. My body was screaming at me. Every muscle, every bone was screaming. Govinda Swami grabbed me and he pulled me. He said, we're almost there today, which I didn't know. Again, like the old days, I knew of no plan, just we're going to do parikram. That was it. And then we're down on the ground. Took us 4 or 5 hours a day for 10 days. It's like 22 kilometers. I figured it out. It was something like every day, 2 kilometers, it's 2,000. Every time you went down was like 3 meters. So you did like 700 dandavats a day. So the first day almost killed me. Second day almost killed me. By the third day, I thought Govardhan was very kind. I felt better. I actually got stronger each day. Anyway, we did that a long time ago, and I was just wanted to do something since Govardhan had given us so much shelter. So, yes. So Prabhupada and Govardhan, very, very special relationship Prabhupada had with Govardhan. One of the first things Prabhupada told me, before I was in one of my first personal meetings in his garden in Los Angeles, as I was holding the Krishna book, Prabhupada looked at me, he said, I like the cowherd boys very much. 3 years later, we're in Atlanta. I'm supposed to go there. They're having their 50th anniversary, February 2025, of Prabhupada's 3-day visit in Govardhan. And it was a very special visit. So that one evening, we're up in Prabhupada's room. 3 years later now, I'm his servant for 2.5 years. And I'm massaging Prabhupada's legs and his feet, and he's laying in bed. And there's a painting he can see from where he's laying in bed. It's Krishna and Balaram, cowherd boys, and so many cows and calves in this painting. And I'm massaging. And Prabhupada said, I like the cowherd boys very much. And then he said, every day, Krishna and Balaram, they would go into the forest to herd the calves. He said they were young boys. He said they were herding the calves at that time. And they would spend the whole day in the forest of Vrindavan. So their mothers would make tiffins. They would have lunch. So Krishna Balaram, their tiffin had kachori, luglu, like that. Cowherd boys, they had rice, chapati, like that. So when lunchtime came, they would all play, these cowherd boys, and they would steal Krishna's tiffin and start passing it around. Keep away. We say keep away. And then finally they would give Krishna one of their tiffins with the rice and dal and chapati. And they would have Krishna's tiffin, kachuri and laddu. Prabhupada's saying this as I'm massaging him. He's telling me this story. And then he said, I just want to go back to the spiritual world and eat kachuri and luglu with Krishna. And then he closed his eyes. So this is our Srila Prabhupada. This is the person. He lives here. He lives here always, eternally in Vrindavan and Govardhan. And at the same time, he's preaching all over the universe, getting other people to have that same desire. Just want to go back home. That's our goal. Not to stay here in this place, play with our cell phones, worry about our office we have and not have an office. None of these things are important. We want to go back home, back to Godhead. So that's what you're doing here. And you're already back home, back to Godhead. Okay. Question? Anyone?
Hare Krishna Prabhu. Thank you so much for wonderful pastime of Srila Prabhupada. I wanted to know what Srila Prabhupada emotions were when he used to listen about devotees leaving Krishna consciousness.
Devotees leaving?
Krishna consciousness.
Yeah. He said many different things. One time he said, don't be surprised who leaves. Be surprised who stays. He said, Krishna consciousness, he said, is difficult, but material world is impossible. Yeah. So that much we can learn. We see people go. Prabhupada said, even you go away, Krishna will drag you back. And Prabhupada said that. There's letters to that effect early on when some big devotee left. He said it's not possible even to stay away. He said Krishna will drag you back. Once the process is started, completion will be there. We know maybe not this lifetime, but whatever we do, that goes in our spiritual bank account. Right? Everything else is gone. Just like we see who just died, Mr. Tata. He donated billions and billions of dollars. He was actually a very nice philanthropist. But all that money is gone, and he knew that. He gave it away. What good is it? I can't take it with me. We know the Egyptians, they had their pyramids, all the pharaohs, they would stash all their gold. They think they could take it with them to the next life. You can't take any of that with you. Not only that, Prabhupada told us, when you come into this world, you already have designated amount of breaths to take. So many breaths, then you're gone. And he said, when you come in, whatever fortune you're going to get has already been determined by your last birth. He said, you can decide how to make your money. You can do this job, this career, this thing. But whatever it is, it will come to you. You're not going to change that. The one thing we can do is become Krishna conscious. That's the one thing we can do. But Prabhupada was very sad. It's tears in his eyes when someone would leave, especially people that he knew very closely from the beginning, 66, 67, 68, that opened temples for him. He would become, even as we know, sannyasis. I was with Prabhupada 2 different occasions, once in 75 and once in 77. In 75, it was Mexico City. Sannyasi, he had left. He got married and he had a baby now, a little baby boy. And Prabhupada came to Mexico City, and he was in his sitting room, and he asked, "Where is this devotee?" Of course, the devotee was ashamed. He didn't want to go before Prabhupada because he left his sannyas. So Prabhupada asked for him. So then he came in, and he was very humble, very shy, embarrassed. Now he's married, and he has son. And he offered his obeisances. And Prabhupada, "How are you doing?" Prabhupada was just very, very kind. He said, "Okay, Prabhupada." You could see he felt bad. Prabhupada said, "No matter." He said, "Now you're a grahasta like Sruta Kirti." I was sitting there. He said, "Now you're a grahasta like Sruta Kirti. Just carry on with your service." Prabhupada traveled around the world with grahasta. When I was with them, I was brahmachari, Shamasundar grahasta, Prajumna grahasta. They both had wives and children. Prabhupada didn't make any distinctions. Everyone was just his servant. All this was just external. He expected the same from everyone, whether you were brahmachari, sannyasi, grahasta, didn't matter. So he said, "Just do your service now. Continue, do your service." He said, "It's fine." And boy said, "Prabhupada, I was going to name my boy Abai." Prabhupada said, "Okay." Then in 1977, I came to Vrindavan with ex-sannyasi. We were both in Hawaii, and without knowing, we were both on the same flight from Hawaii to India to see Prabhupada. September 1977. And this sannyasi, I could tell you, Madhvisa Maharaj, when he left, so many rumors traveled all over the place. He was so disturbed. He was accused stealing this, doing that, embezzling money. Prabhupada was furious. He said, "Now you've embarrassed him so much he can't even come back." He said, "Stop all this nonsense, all this gossip." None of it was true. Gossip is very bad. Prabhupada said he would call, tell him to stop gossip. He told me in Mayapur. Mayapur was like the centerpiece of gossip in ISKCON, because Mayapur festival, everyone would come and together from all around the world. This person doing this person did this person that, this person got married, this one got divorced. Prabhupada called me in the room. He said, "Tell them to be quiet." He said, "All they do is gossip." He said, "Tell them this gossip will destroy your Krishna consciousness. This is what will destroy your Krishna consciousness. These offenses to devotees destroys your Krishna consciousness." He said, "Tell them, be quiet, just chant." He told me that 3 different occasions. He didn't say it stops your Krishna consciousness. He didn't say it slows down. It literally destroys it. It's offenses. We think we're going away for this reason, that reason. We may think, "I don't like the temple president. I don't like the way this is going on." But the real reason is Maya's pulling you away because of offenses. So main thing, avoid offenses. And we avoid offenses only talking about Krishna, Krishna's service. That's our only business. Even Prabhupada's godbrother, he told me, sannyasi godbrother in Mayapur, he said to me, "When he comes, I don't want to see him. All he does is gossip." He said, he'll tell me in this mat, Gaudiya mats there, in this mat they're doing this, and my disciples are doing like this. He said, "I don't want to hear any of these things." He said, if he came here and spoke about Lord Chaitanya's pastimes, Lord Chaitanya's travels, or he spoke philosophy, he said, I'd be very happy to see him, but all he does is gossip. And Prabhupada would use that word, gossip. He didn't say prajalpa, he said gossip. Gossip is a very specific thing, a very specific word in English. Just nonsense. I mean, you're just talking nonsense, you don't even know true, not true, and it doesn't matter. He said, so I don't want to see him. His godbrother. The very next day, Prabhupada's taking rest. 2:00 in the afternoon. His godbrother walks up the stairs, walks up to the first floor, second floor, right? Prabhupada's room's on the second floor. And I'm standing at the top of the stairs. I'm the guard, security. And he's there, I'm here to see Swamiji. What could I said, well, Prabhupada's resting now, so I can't disturb him. He said he told me whenever I want, I can come and see him. I said, yeah, but right now he's resting. I didn't know what to do. It's Prabhupada's godbrother. We're talking, probably a little loudly. And Prabhupada opens his bedroom door. He's got his dhoti, sanya, all disheveled, no kurta. He just got up from his nap. And he sees this Maharaj. Oh, Maharaj, welcome. He said, sit down, I'll be right there. Prabhupada goes to the bathroom. So now this sannyas Maharaj and we go into Prabhupada's sitting room and we sit down, and I could see this Maharaj didn't like me at all, trying to stop him from seeing his godbrother. So we're sitting there, and then Prabhupada comes to the room. Didn't give him a hug or anything, which he would do. Every time he saw Krishnadas Babaji, oh, they would embrace and laugh and hug. But this one, Prabhupada just went, sat behind his desk, and Prabhupada greeted him. And Maharaj couldn't wait. He said, you're a servant. He wouldn't, told me I couldn't see you. Prabhupada looked at me. He said, I told you whenever Maharaj comes, let him in the room. He told me exact opposite, but that's what he said. And then he said, okay, you can go. And then I went. So this was Prabhupada. Whatever he may think, he was always available to try to encourage others in Krishna consciousness. And even his fallen disciples. In Hawaii once, one boy came and he helped open the LA temple. Now he was in Hawaii, big mustache and beard and his hair. He was blooped. But Prabhupada called for him, so he came, and he's sitting in the room there in Hawaii. And Prabhupada just started glorifying him. He was so embarrassed, and Prabhupada saying, he is open. Practically speaking, Prabhupada said, he has started this temple in Los Angeles, this devotee. And he just went on glorifying him, encouraging him. Just pick up where you left off. Everything finished. Just be finished. So that was Prabhupada's mood. One thing he didn't like is if you tampered with his philosophy. You made any changes, that he didn't. That would make him furious. And for that, you can go, that person. But even if they would come back humbly, Prabhupada would take them back. He said always, they said, it was Tamal Krishna Maharaj asked Prabhupada, how many times? You forgive once, you forgive twice, you forgive 3 times, it was said. Prabhupada said, yes. And then he said, devotee never stops forgiving. Prabhupada never stops forgiving. But don't take advantage, he would say. Don't take advantage of such compassion. So that was our Srila Prabhupada. And because of his compassion and his purity, he was able to make this society, worldwide society. Okay. All right, one more question.
Hare Krishna, Prabhuji, Dandot Pranam. Thank you, Prabhuji, for this nice class and explaining the sweet pastime of Srila Prabhupada. Prabhuji, just as you told in the class that Prabhupada wants that there should not be change, and it is a common attitude of this current generation devotees that they are changing the core philosophy or teachings. But my question is that, Prabhuji, time to time, situation changes, generation changes, and in order to keep ourselves upgrade, we have to make little bit innovations and change. So how to make sure that we are always innovative according to the current situation. At the same time, we are not changing the core philosophy. So how to make this balance, because this is very tough to innovate and to maintain the core philosophy at the same time. So how to make sure this?
When I joined Srila Prabhupada, again, it was We traveled. I was with him just 2 weeks, and now we were in Bangkok, Thailand. One of the devotees here, you all know here, what's his name involved with Eastern Asia, Burjan. So I'm massaging Prabhupada, and Burjan's sitting in front of Prabhupada. I'm behind, massaging his back. And Prabhupada said, my godbrothers criticize me for allowing women in the temple. So they criticize me. Did you allow women? He said, in India, no temple in those days, no women living in any temple, it was just the men. He said, but when I went to your country, he said, I studied the people, the American people, and I understood in order for Krishna consciousness to spread all over the world, that adjustment had to be made. He said, but my godbrothers criticize me. He said, but in Mayapur, when they have their festivals, Gaur Purnima, he said, who's in the temple? He said, nothing but widows. But yet they criticize me. He said, but by making that adjustment, we've been successful. So I'm massaging Prabhupada. And after a little bit, I said, Prabhupada, what's the difference between, how does one know the difference between changing a principle and making an adjustment? And then it got very quiet. And then finally Prabhupada said, that requires a little intelligence. And that's how he left it. So the principles of Krishna consciousness have not changed since it was delivered to the sun god millions and millions of years ago. This philosophy is intact. And that's why Prabhupada is so important, because even we understand there's gaps in the disciplic succession. Sometimes there may be long gaps, maybe thousands of years. But then it'll be picked up, Prabhupada said, by the next Acharya who delivers the pure message. So Prabhupada's business was, he delivered pure Krishna consciousness, and he showed us how to be a devotee of Krishna. He told us how to worship the deity, how to chant, how to sleep, how not to sleep. All these things are there. So all we have to do, and even Kirtan, there's so many letters, statements. He said one or two melodies are nice. Other than that, he said people will just become agitated, disturbed. He had many morning Mangal Arti. There's a morning melody. He would send me, every one of his servants at one time or another, he sent into the temple room. Tell him to stop. Tell him just chant the morning melody. So we can accept these things, or we can think, well, we should do like this. But some things are directly ordered by Srila Prabhupada. Other things we can adjust. Time, place, circumstance. Different countries we see, Krishna consciousness, they take in different ways. Their kirtans may be a little different this way, that way. But as you say, core message should never be changed. The only time I saw Prabhupada literally, lips quivering, his eyes would become red. I call it his Nrsingadev feature. When someone tampered with the philosophy, that he would cut your head off if he had to, because that'll destroy everything. So it's important to read Prabhupada's books. It's even very, very nice to see his videos, to watch him at classes, and to hear from his disciples that are still around, to show so many ways are there, things Prabhupada said to different people and everything, to follow those things. Main thing is, we come here to serve, not to be served. See, in our days, when I joined in 71, I gave up a house, I gave up a college education with a scholarship, I gave up my motorcycle, I gave up my job, I gave up everything. Now people come to the temple, they are better situation than they might have had before they became devotee. So we have to be very careful that we don't come to be served by Krishna. Our only business is serving Krishna. That's the main thing. Like we know Bhaktisiddhanta Prabhupada quoted him how many times? My Guru Maharaj said, better to sell all the marble and print books. Everyone's fighting over rooms. I have to have this room. No, I get this room. You get this room. This room's bigger. No, this is, Prabhupada said to me, if Krishna gives you a bed, we sleep in the bed. If he doesn't, we'll sleep on the floor. That's a devotee. If you go in a room, oh, this isn't for me, this is where I'm supposed to stay, that's not devotee. Devotee accepts whatever Krishna gives him. That's the main thing. All right. So it's getting very late. I know you all have activities today. Today you're doing parikram? No. Okay.
So
All right.
Thank
Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thank you all very much. Hare Krishna.
thank you, Prabhuji. We are really grateful and obliged. You shared such nectars about Prabhupada and pastime. So we are really thankful and we would like to reciprocate by chanting one time Hare Krishna Mahamantra for Prabhuji. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. So we would like to facilitate Prabhuji and we would like to invite His Grace Sundar Gopal Prabhuji on the stage for the same.
Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare. We would also like to invite Her Grace Vishaka Devi Mataji on stage and Her Grace Radha Nandi Mataji to felicitate Mataji on stage. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Hare Hare. Give a big round of applause for His Grace Sruta Kirti Prabhuji and Her Grace Vishaka Devi Mataji. Hari Bol. Now, Prabhuji, a group photo. I would request devotees to come forward and